Hey guys, so today in this video, I'm going to show how to draw Patrick Mahomes in a comic book style. Now I'm going to break down this video into the three main stages of creating this artwork. And the first stage is pencils, next is inks, and then the last stage is the colors. And if you want to get some merch with this drawing of Patrick Mahomes on it, whether it's like a cell phone case or a t-shirt or a poster, click on the link in the description and you can go check that out. So first we'll get into the pencils. Now to begin each drawing, I always start sketching with a pencil. Obviously this is so that, you can sort of loosely sketch out the way you want it to be, and obviously pencils you can erase if you make a mistake. So, that's the benefit of that. And, the first thing you want to do is lay out the entire body just in real basic shapes, just to make sure that it's going to fit on your page. The last thing you want to do is you start drawing the helmet, or you start drawing, a detailed area. And then as you move on to the rest of it, you realize, oh, his body's getting cut in half and off the page. So that way you can make sure that, the player fits on the page the way you want it to. Now here's the reference image that I'm using for this drawing. And, I picked this photo of Patrick Mahomes because I really like it. I think it's a very dynamic pose. You can definitely see how his torso is twisting. His arms and his shoulders are kind of facing to the left a little bit, but his waist and his legs are facing to the right. So definitely a dynamic pose. It looks like he's right about to throw the ball. So I think it really, it kind of captures the way comic book poses should be. I think it fits well for a comic book style. Now, one of the most important things when it comes to drawing like a comic book style football player or other sports player, and this is something that I see a lot of people, they don't do this, but I think one of the most important things you can do is don't draw exactly what you see. Draw something better than what you see. Now the thing is, this is when you're taking a photograph, you're just taking a photo and you capture it in the moment, and however the person's arms and legs are, you get what you get. But when you're creating artwork, you're not limited to how things are in reality. You can make it better than reality. Don't be afraid to make their pose more dynamic. When I drew in this picture that I'm drawing, I really wanted to emphasize the rotation of his body. And I kind of tweaked where his arms are. I kind of tweaked, the way his hand is. As you can see on the left side, I basically had to sort of shorten his arm to make it fit on the page. So I just kind of had to move where his hand is, as if his hand was covering his arm a little bit. And don't be afraid to do things like that. Like I said, this is art. It doesn't have to be like a photograph is. You're really just using the photograph as inspiration. And, don't be afraid to improve the way that the player looks. If you want to make him more muscular or just make him, just look better in general. You can see in the reference photo, it almost looks like Patrick Mahomes has like a big gut. And I know part of it is the rib cage pads that he's got. But, he just kind of looks frumpy. He just looks, he doesn't look like an athlete. He just looks like I said, he has a big gut, and his legs look kind of weak, goofy. So, you can see the way I drew it. I just tried to make him look cooler, make his body look less frumpy and just look more dynamic, and just make it look cooler. And like I said, this is art. You can do whatever you want. So if you want to make someone look cooler than they look in real life, go for it, because it's going to make your drawing better and it's going to make your art look better. And at the end of the day, that's what's most important. Now, after you've laid out all of the basic shapes on the paper, you want to refine shapes. So whether you've got hands and fingers, the face mask on the helmet, things like that, you want to refine. You start out with a blobby shape and you refine those areas with the pencil, and just, keep doing real loose lines until you kind of get the shapes the way you want them. Don't be afraid to erase and start over. And that way, you can really define everything the way you want it and get it to be perfectly the way you want it. Don't be afraid to erase and start over. And then lastly, after you've refined some of the shapes, you fill in the details, in the jersey, the number, the patches, stripes, you know, the logo on the helmet, things like that. You know, you fill in those details as you go. And there again, don't be afraid to erase. You know, make sure you get them perfect. And you know, the benefit of, like I said, of using pencil is that you can erase, you can make mistakes, and it's not permanent. So take advantage of that. And like I said, don't be afraid to erase. And definitely, you know, as you can see throughout this process, I keep lifting my page up to look at it. It's very easy, you know, if your paper is lying at an angle on your desk, to, you know, there's a perspective going on when you look at it like that. And it's quite possible that if you never lift it up, that you'll draw with the perspective. And then when you lift it up for the first time at the end, you know, his head will be way too big and his feet will be way too small. So definitely lift up your page, look at it, you know, straight on, so you don't have a weird perspective going on. And that'll definitely help your proportions be better and help it not look all skewed. The next step of the process is inking. And basically, the way I start this off is I have a really thin pen, micron pen, and I'm just taking it to basically outline all of the shapes. So you've got the rough sketch underneath with pencil, but in a lot of the areas it's kind of rough, you know, where the final line is. And I'm using this thin ink pen to basically define the final line. And that way, you know, I can basically outline everything and then be able to get rid of the pencils after that and erase them away. And, you know, be careful, especially when you're doing fine details, inking, like around the face mask or the numbers or hands, you know, various things like, you know, patches, things like that. Because, you know, if you mess up, this is a permanent stage. Pencils, if you mess up, you can always erase, but once you get to the inking part, if you mess up, you're just gonna have to you know, figure out a way to make it work. And you might have to get creative depending on how badly you mess something up. So just be careful there. And the next step after I outline everything with the micron is to start adding some thicker lines. So the style that I've been using, I use a lot of thick and thin contrasting lines for emphasis. First thing I do is outline the entire player with a really thick black outline. And then after that, I'll outline other shapes such as his, you know, his hand, his arm, his head, basically to sort of bring those parts to the forefront to sort of define them away from the rest of his body. So then I fill in the remaining shapes, basically varying the thickness of the lines from, you know, the very thinnest to medium to the thickest. And these are basically just to provide emphasis and also to provide depth. You know, if I'm trying to make an object such as his hand stand out from his body, then I'll use a really thick line. You know, around his face mask, I want it to stand out from his face, but not as much. So I kind of use a medium thickness line. And this is something you just go by feel, and you just go throughout every area of the whole drawing and just vary the line width. Like I said, the thicker it is, the more emphasis you'll provide, the more depth you'll provide to make it stand out from what's below it. And yeah, just go off of feel and just keep doing that. And that really brings the drawing together, in my opinion. That's sort of what takes it from a simple line drawing to a dynamic drawing. And this is why I like this style so much. This is kind of fun, one of the funnest parts of this drawing here. And then lastly, to finalize adding depth, I use hatching and cross hatching. And this is yet another way of providing shadows for depth, for emphasis in the drawing. And hatching and cross hatching is just a way to sort of, instead of everything just being stark black or white, kind of gives the overall color of that part, makes it kind of grayish. So like I said, so you can provide shadows and, you know, make things look like they have more depth. I get a lot of comments asking, you know, how to get better at art, or how to improve your artwork. And I mean, really, there's just one thing to it, and that's just practice. You know, practice, 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 and more practice. I mean, there's really not much to it. You know, if you go look at the first few videos that I posted on my channel from about a year and a half ago, and I mean, they look pretty silly compared to the drawings that I'm making now. But I mean, at the time, that was the best I could do. I was trying my best, but you know, my skills were only at a not very good level. So the more you practice, you know, you'd be surprised how much you'll get better at things. And you know, maybe you don't like where you're at now, but just keep practicing, and it's really only a matter of time before you get better. And you know, look at other drawings a lot. Look at how other people, you know, if you're struggling with making your hands look realistic, go look at how someone else drew a hand and what did they do to make it look good. You know, if someone else, you know, if you feel like your characters look really stiff and someone else has really dynamic poses, you know, what are they doing to make their poses more dynamic? So, you know, practice a lot, observe a lot of other artists, you know, ones that you think are good, see what they do, try to copy that, and, you know, just keep at it, and it's only a matter of time before you get better. And lastly, we do the coloring. Now, the way I do colors is pretty simple. It's kind of a three-step process. So for each color that I'm putting on, I want to get 2 to 3 shades. So the red of his helmet and his jersey, the yellow, the skin tone, white and gray for like his pants. You know, you want to get 2 to 3 shades of each one of those colors. And the first thing you do is you put down a base layer for every color. So, you know, I'm gonna color in his whole helmet red, and the base layer is gonna be the lightest shade. So, you know, with these markers, you know, you can always go darker, but you can't go lighter. So you put the lightest shade down first, that way you can always go darker and darker with your next shades. So the base layer is gonna be the lightest shade. And then after you've done the base layer for all the different colors, you'll do the second layer, and this is gonna be your medium shade. And this is kind of the color, you know, the way you pick this color is you want it to be, you know, whatever your final color is, that's what you want this to be. Picking his jersey to be red, and you kind of want this deep cherry red, that's gonna be what your second shade is. And the first shade, the base layer, would be kind of a very light red, almost pink. And you know, the second layer, you put it down everywhere except for where a highlight's gonna be. So this drawing, I decided to backlight it because I feel like that looks dynamic and looks cool. So I put down the second shade everywhere in the middle of the object, and just basically leave the highlighting on the outer edges for the backlighting. Leave that as the first shade. And I'll do that for all the colors, like I said, for the skin tone, for the yellow, for the red, everything. And then lastly, the third shade is your darkest shade. This is basically a shadow. And the first place I'll put it is right on where the first shade, the highlight, and the second shade meet. I always put a dark line there, and basically, if you look at a photograph of something that's backlit, it actually gets darker right before the highlighted part. So if you put that there, that makes that effect look cooler. And like I said, it makes it more dramatic. And then you also use the third shade just for shadows and things like that to add more depth. So that's how the colors work. And you know, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to draw Patrick Mahomes. If you have any comments or questions about this drawing or my style, or you know, comic book styles in general, leave a comment in the description below. And if you have any other players you'd be interested in seeing me draw, leave a comment and put them down there. And definitely subscribe to this channel if you like videos like this. And I'll see you in the next video.